Okay, so really, and then you look at us at 47%. So what we're really talking about is taking this 43% in the income tax and flipping it up to the sales tax. It can be done. These states are doing it. So it's not like it's not possible. So the question becomes, well, how do you get there? You can do it all at once in a big bang. That's going to be the hardest way. Or you can do something like a glide path. Okay? Now the problem with the glide path is we're going to have to trust multiple sessions of the legislature to do the right thing and all that. But now here's the thing. Honestly, from a tactical perspective, what I've learned, and I think a lot of folks will back me up on this, the political system, although this year and the next year could be different, and that's good, but the political system does not handle massive change well. It handles incremental change much better. And so if we come up with a glide path, so we have to have a variety of ideas. And I will defer to my two friends who sit on the tax committee and tell you nothing happens without a bill. Right?
Right.
You got a bill and then you get hearings. And these gentlemen, I think, would be very sympathetic to hearings. That's how the political process starts. So we need a bill. 2 bills, 5 bills. One that says we're going to phase in, one says we're going to do it in a big bang. Let's have a debate over all of them. And then the critters come out of the woodwork and start gnawing on your bill. And then you know who the critters are. You say, all right, how are we going to handle these critters? Okay? I mean, that's kind of how it works. So if you come with a package and a citizens initiative, fair taxers, AFPers, Tea Partiers get together and say, you know what? We're going to do a Tabor type thing. We're going to do the REAL Act, Representative Brunk's REAL Act, and we're going to do a fair tax. Or if we're not going to do a fair tax, what we're really going to do is we're going to get this number down to 0 like all these other folks, and we're going to get it up. And there is a way to do that. Okay? All you got to do, the one thing you could start with is eliminating all exemptions. But guess what's going to happen? Critters are going to come out of the woodwork. Okay? So it's not easy. But we know exactly, it's all a matter of execution. So here I am, the academic, telling you, yeah, we've run the numbers, it can work. But, so what? Okay? I mean, until we get enough force and enough people saying, here's the plan. I don't agree with all of the plan, but here's the plan. I'm behind the plan because it's the best plan we've got. Then we can start making progress. And you're going to be battling very well-funded, I mean, the school lobby is going to go nuts if you do this. And what's sad about that is I guarantee you the teachers really aren't, they would love to have more efficient schools, better stuff. It's the union. I mean, plain and simple. It's the people who make their living lobbying this stuff. It's not the people they represent. And so another holistic approach. This is why school choice matters. Not because, but if you have a monopoly system that actually believes, they honestly believe they're doing the best they can with the money they've got. So you've got to let someone else come in and say, no, I've got a better idea. That's how competition works, right? Right. And you do it in small scale experiments. So an alternate or a complementary thing is we're not going to do a big bang because big bangs don't work, but we're going to make Kansas the best charter school state, for example, in the nation. We're going to allow entrepreneurs to come in and say, yeah, I think I can educate these kids for half the money and do it better. And we're going to let them exist. We're not going to let the gorillas snuff them out before they even open their doors. Because that's where all the money is. Okay? And then the universities, I better not say anything about universities. But I'll tell you, I raised all my own money. So one last thing I thought you guys would be interested. This is state level taxes only. By the way, this is like a 10-year average. So I mean, it's very, very stable. Kansas is not the highest in this set, but we're higher than Florida. We're higher than Texas, and we're a lot higher than South Dakota. So we could get that down and then lower the rate. It's because one of our primary constraints with the fair tax and the rate is right here, right? Or on the other side of State Line Road. But if we stay in the 8 to 9 range, or lower, but I'm just saying in terms of feasibility, 8 to 9 range, then you can do it and still, I think, remain competitive with the Oklahoma border and the Missouri border. And that's critical because 40% of the population is on the border and 30% of the entire Kansas economy is within a 50-mile radius of right here. Hard to believe, but that's where it is. Okay? And so, you all would know better than me how easy it is to cross State Line Road to shop or whatever.
30%?
Johnson County and the Johnson County Douglas corridor represents 40% of all money earned in the state of Kansas. And Johnson County is like 30 or 33.
You said 30% of all within a 50-mile radius?
So basically what I was trying to say is if you take Johnson County and you take where all paychecks are earned, Johnson County represents 1/3 of the entire state of Kansas. All right, let's go. So real quick, I think you guys are familiar. Well, I don't know how familiar, so I want to see. Here, in your packet, there's a little report that I drafted, and here's sort of the takeaway from it. Okay. The basic design is you can have an 8% rate. That would be the target I would shoot for. Okay. You're going to tax all end-use consumption. That's the whole idea behind the fair tax. We're not going to tax business-to-business transactions.
That's right.
The reason for that is you get a phenomenon called cascading. So if you look at, if I'm a furniture maker and I buy woods, furniture store, you start paying tax on tax on tax, and that's death. If we're going to have that, you've got to pull the plug on the deal because it's going to be worse than what we have. It's not a VAT. A good VAT actually avoids this problem. But the solution we have for fixing this is inspired by a certain VAT procedure that they have in Europe. And what that means, we can talk about that in a minute. So there's no business-to-business transaction. Technically speaking, we would tax them, but then there would be a rebate at the end that all businesses could apply for. And there's lots of ways to do things, but in our thinking at the moment, and this is just a prototype, we thought that would be the most efficient in the sense that we don't want all the shopkeepers having to worry about who's exempt, who's not exempt, who gets what. That's the tax authority's business. And if you get the tax authority involved, even though we don't love them, they're the people who sort of are supposed to be doing this stuff, and they watch out for the cheats and all that stuff. So we're not going to tax money used for saving investment. That's what I meant by capital. You're not taxing capital, and that's the economic power, really. And that's why there's other tax systems that have just as much power, but the fair tax does it in a nice, neat package. Okay? We're not going to attach tuition and job training, so if you go to private school or something like that, no tax there, because in a way we're saying education equals investment, and I think that's a very valid tithes, dues, charitable contributions. But if you're a church, pure system, the YMCA, church, you go to the store to buy supplies and stuff, you got to pay the tax because the money you're getting is not being taxed, but you are consuming or you're helping people consume, right? And the idea is you're going to tax consumption. And then free service provided by charities, because if it's free, but if they go to the store, so we have a church dinner, we're going to give away pizza, right? You got to pay the tax on the pizza, but we're not going to tax the pizza. All right. So that's really the broad outlines of it, and the details don't have to be very complicated. Might end up being, but they don't have to be. Okay. So next slide. Okay. Here's one thing we often, and this is a mantra, and there's also a personal sort of bias built into this, but we hear that sales taxes are regressive. And so for those of you who are educated about the fair tax, forget the prebate. We're talking no prebate yet, okay? My definition of fair, this is Art Hall, is proportional taxation. Proportionality is a principle. You make this much, you consume this much, whatever it is, you pay this share of tax. It's proportional. Doesn't matter how wealthy you are or not. And of course, the more wealthy you are, the more you do, the more you pay in dollars, but not in proportion. Okay? So what I wanted to show you is if we have all these different income levels, 20, 100, 500, but we all save 20%. And what does it mean when we save 20%? We're giving 20% to new production. We're going to invest, in effect, 20% for growth. So if we all invest the same proportionally, we all face the exact same tax rate.
Wow.
That's not regressive. That's proportional. Now, if you go from progressive to proportional, it looks really bad. And you're not going to want to do that. But from an academic perspective, Art Hall's worldview, that's fair. That's what fair is to me. But suppose you do want to have progressivity. Well, the federal fair tax bill has this, what's called a prebate. You essentially get a rebate. But the rebate is based on the poverty level. So the more money you make, the less the rebate really means to you. So everybody's going to get a $1,000 rebate in this system, hypothetically, just to show you. And now look, this is the definition of progressivity. It's not structured what they call statutory tax rates, right? So in the income tax we have 3.5, 6, 6.25, 6. That's a graduated rate structure. You don't need that to have progressivity. You can simply say we're going to give you a rebate. And for folks in the lower income range, it's going to matter a lot more than the upper. That's progressivity. So you can do it. And there's a way to do that. And the federal tax bill has already done it, and we've adopted that in our prototype. Okay. Now, here's special issues. The family rebate we just talked about. If you know about HR 25, you can read the paper in your packet or you can read HR 25. It's the same idea. How it works, I'm not exactly sure, but the idea is that every period, say quarter or monthly or yearly, the state is going to actually give everybody money. And it's going to be based on your family's profile as it relates to the poverty level. So every year, the Health and Human Services says, here's what poverty level is for a family of 4, family of 3, whatever. It's this much money. You take the tax rate, in our case 8%, multiply it times that amount, and that's your rebate. And that's how it works. So it's simple to calculate. To get everybody the checks, that'll be a little harder. But they send out refund checks. I mean, it's not like the infrastructure's not there. Here's the most controversial, and it will never fly. But as the academic, I've got to say, all right, if you're going to tax consumption, then that means consumption. And housing is consumption. And no one wants to do that. Here's the trade-off. You're going to have about 1.5 percentage points higher tax rate if you don't tax housing. So we can all agree, no housing, but you're going to have a higher tax rate, or you're not going to be able to replace as much as you want to replace. Okay? So, again, as the designer of efficient systems, it was my duty to point this out, but I realize politically it's not very, very good. But it would still be a fine idea. I mean, from a tax system perspective, it should be done. And we lay out one procedure for doing it. We are going to, we said we'll tax nonprofits. When the nonprofits go to the store to buy things, they've got to pay the tax. You don't have to. It'll just mean a higher tax rate if you don't. And then cross-border shopping is a big issue, but I sort of indicated that earlier. If you look at the Kansas side, if you take state and local, Kansas is about 1.5 points on average, 1.25 below Missouri already. So you've got about 1.25 points to play with, and we're at 6.35 now. So that was a 5.35 when that was true. So there's some slop there, but I still think the 8 to 9% range is feasible for a state level tax when you're replacing everything. Now that's the key. You're replacing everything, and here's the other key: is the local tax rates are now going to have to drop, because the base is a lot bigger. And that, of course, is where our local friends will try to come and game the system. So that has to be a very tightly controlled part of any legislation. It's feasible. It's a good idea. It's worth the effort. It's going to be frighteningly difficult, but it can be done. Technically, it can be done with great ease.